welcome back to Gamers Overdrive Retro Mode. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, like this video, leave a comment below, and share it with your friends. And I'm looking at something called the PowKiddy V2 today. Now, that's the red one in the middle. It's sandwiched between the RG351V and this little AliExpress cheapo clone. And the cool thing about this one, we have specs on the left there, is that it's very cheap. So it's not the highest technical specifications there, but it's only 30 bucks. So if you wanted to find a cheaper option in this very bloated market of Chinese handhelds, this is definitely an option for you. So what does this thing play? Well, it can play Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, MAME, Mega Drive, Neo Geo, Super Famicom, CPS-1, and CPS-2. Now, how well does it play these things? That's the question, and that's what I'm aiming to uncover in this here video. Here we can see a volume rocker on the side, along with the power button. Take a look down there. We've got a standard USB and a USB-C port. USB-C port for charging, which is good. On top we've got an SD card slot and a headphone jack over there on the left. And the really interesting thing about this is the button layout. This is a very unusual button layout. I've never seen a handheld with this kind of arched, kind of rainbow looking button layout. But let's take a look down here. We have CPS-1, CPS-2, GB, GBA, Game Boy Color, MAME, Mega Drive, Neo Geo, NES, Super Famicom. And you know, wherever you get this, depending on where you buy it from, it might have a few extra emulators installed, or it might have a few missing ones. This is a Chinese handheld we're talking about. It's not a super official product. But let's take a look at some gameplay here. So what I want to show you first is Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, and this is an interesting one to look at. I know this game very well, so I know how it should look, how it should play, and how it should sound. So let's take a look and let's listen for a minute. That's a red flag right there. That virtual audio sound, that little chime, I know it very well, and it's not supposed to sound like that. But let's take a look and listen some more. I'm sure you can hear that tinny audio. It sounds like it's coming from a tin can, and it does sound a little bit off. Let's take a look at the menus here. Everything seems like it's just turned up to an odd octave. It's like a very high pitch and a very tinny sound. Let's listen some more. Now, I found this game to be pretty playable. It's not running at a perfect frame rate, but my immediate observation with this handheld is the poor viewing angles. If you notice there, when I turn the screen, really anything other than head-on, it looks very, very washed out, and that can really hinder your gameplay experience because you have to keep it directly in front of your face at all times. If you variate your angles at any point, it kind of makes you dizzy. And so that's just a measure of the quality of the screen. It's definitely not an IPS screen, and it's probably just a cheap LCD that doesn't have very good quality. The buttons feel good, I have to say. As strange looking as the rainbow arch is there, they do feel good. Let's take a look at some Game Boy Advance. So Game Boy Advance is very easy to emulate for the most part. This is not the ideal screen ratio for a Game Boy Advance, but I thought I would take a look at something simple like Mario Advance. Now, I immediately was hit by the sound. Let's listen to this. Now, this isn't horrible, but it's definitely off. It just seems like the emulator is not optimized for sound. But let's take a look at some gameplay and see if there's any screen tearing or any frame rate issues. I'm not sure if this is showing up on camera or not, but not only is there screen tearing and a stuttering frame rate, but there's also button delay, which makes this game pretty hard to play. Now this is I'm not sure if this is coming down to the quality of the emulator that they're using, or if it's the hardware not being capable of playing Game Boy Advance very well. But I'm gonna say for a $30 handheld, this is kind of expected. It's not a premium product. It's not something that you're paying $100 or more for, so I wouldn't expect perfect gameplay on this. Now, it's not to say that this is a throwaway item. I think it's a pretty good device for what it is, but so far it's not looking so good on the emulation front. As a point of comparison, I just wanted to show the RG351V, just to show you the difference between a premium handheld and a not so premium handheld. And when I say premium, I even say that carefully, because again, this is also a Chinese handheld that is, you know, on the shady side, but it's on the upper end of that spectrum. So let's look at the same game and let's listen to the audio. Let's take a look at the frame rate and compare the two. And right away you can see the Game Boy load up screen, which is essential for me. Let's turn up the audio there and let's listen to the difference. Now, I might be splitting hairs when it comes to the audio, but I definitely hear a very clear difference in the audio. And just look at the frame rate. I mean, we're looking at a very solid 60 frames per second here. The gameplay is a world of difference. I'm playing this with no problem now. There's no button delay. And this is where the biggest difference comes in between these emulators, these handhelds, because the cheaper ones, you're kind of going to get what you pay for. And it's just a matter of weak hardware, emulators that are not optimized, and you know, it's tough because it's very tempting to jump at these cheaper options, and you want to get, you know, the most bang for your buck, but it's tricky. You have to do a little research with these things. So now PowKiddy is not a bad company. They have a very bad name in my opinion. PowKiddy is possibly the worst name I could think of for a handheld, or a company in general, but they do have some very high quality handhelds. This is just at the lower end of their product line. So again, it's $30 US dollars. But let's take a look at another emulator here. Let's take a look at the Neo Geo emulator. And we're looking at Metal Slug here. Let's take a look at some gameplay and listen to the sound. Gotta say, I'm a little impressed with this one. Plays pretty decently. It's not a perfect frame rate. This game suffers from frame rate issues anyway, but it's definitely not running at full speed, and it's definitely stuttering a little bit, but it's totally playable, and the audio actually sounds pretty good on this one. So it's very strange how this thing handles different emulators in different games. It's either hit or miss. And this one, I can say I'm pretty impressed with the Neo Geo. It's totally playable. You know, if you're a purist, of course, you wouldn't even touch this thing because you would probably be playing on a Neo Geo console and you're probably rich. Now again, this is not a terrible handheld. For $30, I gotta say, it's pretty decent. And if it were 5 years ago and you showed me this thing, I would be very impressed. But the thing is, this market for emulator handhelds is so flooded now and filled really with really high quality products and high quality handhelds that you can modify and make even better. For me, it's not really worth the $30 if you can pay another $30 or $40 on top of that and get a much better experience in the Retroid Pocket or any other number of handhelds, even from PowKiddy itself. So this one is a hard sell for me. I wanted to take a look at a Game Boy Color game just because the form factor of this device was obviously made in the vein of the Game Boy, you know, aside from that rainbow arched button layout. But I wanted to see how Game Boy games actually play, and this one pleasantly surprised me. This is kind of a sleeper hit for me. I really am a big fan of this Street Fighter Alpha for the Game Boy Color. I really love different iterations of Street Fighter, and seeing how weaker handhelds back in the day crammed the game into very confined spaces. And this game plays great. Look at the frame rate, listen to the sound. I think this is excellent. So for Game Boy Color games, I would say this is a good option. I apologize for all that glare. I'm trying to get a good angle here, and it's just very difficult. But this game plays like butter, and it looks great. Look at the frame rate. Look at how smooth it is. I'm pulling off moves very easily, and I think it sounds very good. And if you haven't played this edition of Street Fighter Alpha, I would highly recommend it. It's a very good game. So interestingly, as a Game Boy Color replacement or backup, I give this a thumbs up. Good job, PowKiddy. So let's talk about pros and cons. First, the pros. It's $30. It's very cheap, it's light, easily pocketable, and will not break the bank. Also has a decent game selection, and you can add your own games to it. So that's all good. But the bad stuff, there are way too many much better options available. Add another $30-40 on top of this and get the Retroid Pocket. Such a good device, and it has HDMI out. This cannot really compete with that. So this is a tough sell for me, but for what it is, for $30, it does the job, especially when it comes to Game Boy Color. I was pretty impressed with the performance there. But for systems like MAME and SNES and Game Boy Advance, it's just not going to cut it. If you know what these games are supposed to play like and sound like, you will be disappointed. But in closing, just to really hit home the interesting audio, listen to Super Mario Brothers. Listen to this. It sounds like Mario took a deep, deep huff of helium. A big thank you to Spinozin for letting me review this unit. Unfortunately for this one, I'm going to have to give it a meh rating on the retro rating scale. It just doesn't do it for me, but I did have a lot of fun with it. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, comment in the comment section below, and you can also support me on Patreon if you see fit. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time on Gamers Overdrive Retro Mode.